Game Dev Assembly.
Game Dev Journey. So I just finished wrapping up a live Godot 4 Ask Me Anything session, and I wanted to post it here in case any of the questions answer something you might be wondering. Thank you very much, and hello and welcome to everyone. I'm really pleased that you're joining me today. I'm incredibly excited actually to be here to talk about Godot 4. I'm a little bit nervous as well, but I'm sure the nerves will settle as we get into it. I'll do my best to answer your questions, and I'll dive into some of the concepts from my new book, Godot 4 Best Practices, which I have right here. So before we get into the Q&A, I just want to take a couple of moments to share the thinking behind why this book exists. Because when you start out in game development, it's relatively easy to throw together a quick prototype, but the journey from a messy prototype to a fully realized commercial ready game is quite a massive leap. And I wrote this book to bridge that gap. However, this book is really written from a generalist perspective, because when you're building a game, especially as an indie developer or a small team, you aren't just looking at one tiny sliver of code in a vacuum. You have to look at the whole picture. So you need to think about how the art pipeline, the game state, the physics, the user interface, how do all these things talk to each other? And so this book tries to look at it from that holistic perspective. So really, if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this session today, it's that there's no single perfect or absolutely correct way to make a game. Every project is different. The architecture that works flawlessly for a solo developer building a 2D puzzle, it might completely fall apart for a team of 5 building a 3D RPG. So I'm not actually here to give you rigid rules that you must follow 100% of the time. Instead, I want to give you strategies, because the reality is that as your game project gets bigger and as the scene tree gets deeper, and you start collaborating with teammates, these quick and dirty methods, they stop being very effective. So the strategies that we cover in the book, and what we might end up talking a little bit about today, they're designed to help you manage the scaling process. So, we'll look at how to organize your files so that you can actually find things 6 months later, emphasize decoupling systems so that your code doesn't break when a teammate adds a new feature, and how to work more effectively just within Godot engine itself. But ultimately, the goal is to equip you with ideas for workflows that let you focus on making a great game rather than fighting your own code base all the time. Yeah, certainly that's a common experience amongst everyone who starts to make their own games. So you've got to be patient with yourself and persevere. What I would recommend is actually starting with game jams or the kind of foundational projects, copying the famous arcade games from the past. And the reason why I say that is because the game jam forces you to complete something in a small amount of time. Where if you feel that the time pressure there is too much for you, then you can complete like what I would call a foundational project. So you do something like Space Invaders or Snake or Flappy Bird, because those games are small enough that you can complete them in a reasonable amount of time. And at the same time, you'll learn fundamental skills in terms of the mechanics of those games, because they are sort of foundational games. And the more of them you make, you'll chain all those skills together for eventually when you come to make your own game. But certainly do something small that you can finish. That's the advice that I interview a lot of indie developers for my website as well, where they tell me what advice do they have for people who want to make their own games. And the number one piece of advice that's recommended all the time is do something small that you can finish. And even if it's terrible, just finish it, because the experience of finishing the game is what's going to let you make a bigger game the next time. And so just like programming is incremental, and we solve a little problem and then we run the game and see what did that change, and then we make another little change, we run the game again, see what did that change. Start by incrementally increasing the size of the games you make, and don't just start with your dream game, which people often do, because that'll end in the disappointment that I can hear you're feeling at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, so in terms of managing the project when you've got a team, Trello is really good. It's basically just Kanban boards. So if they've got a free tier, so if you want to use their free tier, you can. There are specific tools made for game developers. One thing I really like is code decks, as in cards, deck of cards, codedex.io. They actually make managing the project, the game development project, they gamify it by using cards. And so you have cards for blockers, things that are blocking the project, cards for art, cards for audio, cards for programming, and then so you can deal someone a hand of cards, and those are their tasks. I personally like that one just from a user interface perspective. Trello I have used, managing the Kanban boards, and you put them into the traffic light. Green is complete, orange is in progress, red is blocked or not started. That works well. The other one that's made specifically for game development is Hack and Plan. Hack and then apostrophe N, plan, Hack and Plan. And that is Kanban boards, similar to Trello, but it's also themed and gamified for game development. And so, yeah, that's another good one that I've seen. Godot is a good fit for what you're describing, because it's 100% free, it's open source, there's 0 royalties. It handles PC, mobile, and web, which would include Facebook games right out of the box. The only real catch is console, because you mentioned Xbox there, because that's going to require third-party porting services.
Yes.
Which is offered by companies like W4 Games, but that's
Yes.
because of the the legal software development kit restrictions with open source software. But it's very doable when you're ready for that stage, because there are companies that will do it for you. Pineapple Works is another company that will port games to consoles for you, even the Nintendo Switch. So yeah, if you're looking for out of the gate, going to PC, mobile, and web is fine with Godot. Consoles is going to require a third-party porting company, but they do exist, and they will be able to help you. And that's really just been proven with Game Maker's Toolkit, the Game Jam. It's the biggest game jam that happens every year. And it's been going for, I think, 8 years or 6 years. Anyway, every year until this year, Unity was the most used engine in that game jam by far, like 60% or more.
Yeah.
This year, for the first time, Godot was the most used engine. They had something like 47% of the games were made in Godot, and Unity was now in second place. So that shows you that in my opinion, Godot is starting to have its kind of blender moment.